one question that seems to come up in kind of all of our events is about the US dollar and its role in the world. So the question that we put to everyone is, why is the US dollar the world's dominant currency? And particularly, why isn't it the euro? Why isn't it the Chinese renminbi? What's special about the dollar to make that the world reserve currency?
Yeah, I think it's a good question and valid and of its time. I think given the rate of innovation across financial products, we see the world crying out for change in everything. So whatever the establishment was, the rapidity of change, people are crying out for it to change, whether for good or bad. I would break that into two distinct questions. Why? So why would it need to change? Yes, change is good, but why would it need to change? And the second thing would be, what does a global reserve currency, what does that actually mean in terms of a currency? So if we look at the first part, why does it need to change? If we boil FX down, so currency down, daily transactional volume is at $6.5 trillion. Now that doesn't mean to say that every buyer is different and every seller is different. There are people that buy it and sell it, etc. But that's a big market. That's a big number. Everybody understands that. That can be international trade, import-export businesses. It can be as real as mergers and acquisitions activity, cash payments for goods, and then if you look at sort of on a banking level, as I said earlier, most interbank transactions will boil down to have some sort of FX exposure. So you see a huge volume in bank-to-bank transactions that are hedging part of a derivatives risk. And then that boils down to remittances, which is smaller sums of money being sent around the globe, which was covered by Ollie Walsh, I believe, in one of the other Future of Money. So that it's a huge market that is available to people doing remittances and global mergers and acquisitions activity. So it's a big market, therefore it needs something within it that's big and stable. And in 2019, the dollar was on 88% of every FX trade. So wow. One side of every FX deal was the dollar. Of 88% of FX deals was the dollar. That's an enormous proportion. So not necessarily on all of them, but 88%, the dollar's one side of that. So there's the question, I'll go to the Chinese renminbi. We've got, so whatever's going to challenge it has to be big and strong and needs to grow. And the numbers are quite staggering. Given the fact that Chinese renminbi is on everybody's lips, it still only represents, its growth over the last 5 years has only been at the same level as the aggregate market. So it hasn't outpaced the growth of the market itself. And it's the 8th most actively traded currency on earth. So it's not top 5, it's top 10 barely. And in terms of a global share of a 6.5 trillion daily market, it represents 4.3%. So it's not particularly close. Yes, probably something will change, and I'm sure every 20-something will tell us that it needs to change, but you need to pick a winner. If you look over the last 3 years, this is for various different reasons, the currencies that are actually taking market share quicker than the renminbi are South Korean won, the Indian rupee, Indonesian rupee. So you need to pick a winner of those. That's also pretty difficult, right? So if you were going to choose a global reserve currency, you probably wouldn't just do it on the size of an economy. You'd do it on the ability of its financial system to cope. I think the Indian rupee as a global reserve currency is a bit of an outlier, and yet it's growing quicker in terms of global trade and global transactions.